Welcome back to the Gemara in Bava Kamma, Daf Pei Amud Aleph. We're starting from a new quote from the Mishnah. Ripui hikahu chayav l'rapoto v'chulei. Ripui, how do you assess, how do you figure out how much to pay for ripui? If you injured someone, you're obligated to provide for their healing. That's the quote from the Mishnah. The Gemara begins, Tani Rabbanan, there's a brayta that teaches, Alu bo tzmachi machmad hamaka, v'nistara hamaka, chayav l'rapoto. If sores or lesions arise as a result of the wound and the wound reopens, then the injurer is obligated to pay for the healing. V'chayav li'ten lo dmei shivto, and the injurer is also required to provide the money for shevet. Shalom machmad hamaka, eino chayav l'rapoto, ve'eino chayav li'ten lo dmei shivto. But if these sores come about, if this secondary infection comes about not as a result of the wound, of the original wound, then the injurer is not obligated to pay ripui, and the injurer is also not obligated to pay shevet. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Af machmad hamaka, chayav l'rapoto, ve'ino chayav li'ten lo dmei shivto. Rabbi Yehuda says, even if this infection that's come about, even if these sores have arisen as a result of the original wound, the injurer is chayav, is obligated to pay refuah, but is not obligated to pay shevet in this case of secondary infection. V'chachamim omrim, shivto v'refuato, kol shechayav v'shevet, chayav v'ripui. V'she'ino chayav v'shevet, eino chayav v'ripui. And the Chachamim say that in this case of a secondary infection, something that comes up after, it seems like after the initial healing has happened, anytime you're chayav in shevet, you're chayav in ripui. And anytime you're not chayav in shevet, you're not chayav in ripui. So for the Chachamim, these two things are linked. And which the Gemara will talk about a little bit later on. So even if these sores developed because of the original wound, then the injurer isn't chayav for ripui if they're not chayav for shevet. This is all the brayta. B'mai kamiflagay. The Gemara wants to know, what are they really arguing about? What's the real difference between these different opinions? Amar Rabba, Ashchachtin hilo Rabbanan b'vei Rav, Diyat v'ka amre, Hacha b'makenit na laged k'miflagei. So Rabba says, I found the rabbis of the house of Rav who were sitting and saying, in this case, what they're arguing about, what they're disagreeing about, is whether it's permissible to wrap a wound. And Rashi here explains, Nitna laged and Shelo nitna laged, that the question is whether the injured has permission to wrap their wound just for comfort. It's not going to make the wound heal, but it's just more comfortable. It keeps the cold out, and the cold causes pain. But as a result, machmad hevel v'chom ha'aged, because of the heat of the wrapping, that's what causes these sores to form. So in other words, the injured kind of brought it on themselves. They wanted to be more comfortable, so they put this bandage on, and the bandage is what led to the secondary infection. And according to Rabbah, according to the rabbis in the house of Rav, as overheard by Rabbah, the argument is about whether or not the injured was allowed to do this. Rabbanan savre, makan nitna laged. Rabbi Yehuda savar makan lo nitna laged. So Rabbanan, in this case meaning that first set of rabbis, the Tana Kamma in the brayta, think that you're allowed to do this kind of bandaging, even though it's just for comfort. And so if sores do develop, if an infection develops as a result of this bandaging, then the injurer still has to pay for both ripui and shevet. Rabbi Yehuda savar makeloni nalaged, but Rabbi Yehuda says no, permission is not given for this kind of bandaging. because the victim isn't allowed to make things worse, and therefore, ripui detana bekra mechayev. So ripui, which is repeated twice by the pasuk, rapoi rapeh, that the person is chayevin. Shevet delo tana bekra, but shevet, which is only stated once by the pasuk, lo mechayev, that the person is not chayevin. So in other words, because the injured was somewhat at fault for causing this to happen, they only get ripui, which is repeated twice by the pasuk, and they don't get shevet. I'm going to put all of this as the answer. V'amina lahu ana, and I said to them, this is Rabba speaking about having overheard this in the house of Rav. I said to them, Ima ken lo nitna la'aged, ripui nami lo machayev. Basically, he says, I disagreed with them. I said that if you're not allowed to wrap a wound for comfort, then the injurer should also not be chayev in ripui, right? You can't hold the injurer responsible for something if it's a result of something that the injured wasn't supposed to do. So he says that doesn't make any sense, that Rabbi Yehuda would be holding that he's not allowed to do it, but he still gets ripui. I'm going to call this an objection or a challenge. Ella dekule alma maken nitna la'aged, v'lo nitna la'aged yetera. Rather, Rebbe offers a different answer to the question of what the argument is about. Rather, everyone agrees, Kol Alma agrees, that you're allowed to wrap a wound even just for comfort, but you're not allowed to wrap it excessively. You're not allowed to wrap it too much. So you're allowed to wrap for comfort, but there's a point at which you're not. Rabbi Yehuda savar kivan delo nitna la'aged yetera, ripui detana bekra mechayev, shevet delo tana bekra lo mechayev. So Rabbi Yehuda thinks that since you're not allowed to excessively bandage the wound, ripui, which is repeated twice by the pasuk, tana bekra, it's repeated twice by the pasuk, that the injurer is chayevin. But shevet, which is not repeated by the pasuk, the injurer is not chayevin in this case where the person excessively wrapped it. V'Rabbanan Sabre, and the rabbis, again, talking about the Tana Kamma here, the first opinion in the Breitza, they believe, Kevan detana bekra beripui, ashevet nami mechayev. Since the pasuk repeats ripui twice, the person is also chayev in shevet to eat kashla ripui, because it's juxtaposed to ripui. In other words, the fact that they're kind of put together in the pasuk means that the doubling of ripui applies to shevet as well. So that's why they would say that the injurer is chayev in both shevet and ripui, even in a case where the injured, did excessive wrapping. Now the Gemara is going to further look into why Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. Rabbi Yehuda savar shevet lo mechayev dema'ate rachmana rak. And Rabbi Yehuda says, no, they're not. The person in this case is not chayev in shevet, right? Only chayev in ripui, which is the one that was repeated. They're not chayev in shevet because there's a miyut in the pasuk. The pasuk purposely has an exclusion. It says rak shivto yiten v'rapo yirapeh. So this miyut, this exclusion, means that you don't put together shevet and ripui. So ripui, yes, that gets repeated twice. That the injurer is chayev in this case, but shevet not. V'Rabbanan, and the rabbis, again, the Tana Kamma, the first opinion in the Breitza, rak, right, this word rak, l'shalom machmat hamakehu da'ata. They think that this word rak comes to tell you about wounds that come not as a result, or sores that come not as a result of the wound. In other words, it's only a miyut, it only excludes something if the secondary infection came not as a result of the wound. But if the secondary infection happens because the injured excessively bandaged their wound, and that wound was a result of the original injury, then the injurer is still chayav. Let's say that this is an explanation or support. And this could be also actually, or you could see the Rabbanan Rak as kind of like a question and then a response, but we'll do it this way. Ul Rabbanan Batrai, and for literally the later rabbis, or the last rabbis, meaning the third opinion in the Breita, called the Chachamim in the Breita, Da'amre, who said, Kol shechayav b'shevet chayav b'ripui, v'kol she'eino chayav b'shevet eino chayav b'ripui. That was their opinion. Ripui t'tana beikra lamale. So if they think that, then why do I need the verse to repeat ripui? Why do I need it doubled? Because they think that you're not chayav for ripui, right? These Rabbanan Batrai, these Chachamim, think that you're not chayav in ripui, even if the secondary infection came because of excessive bandaging. So what does this doubling do for them? How do they read this pasuk of Rapo Yerapeh? It's not to teach you that that you're obligated for ripui even in a case of excessive bandaging, because they don't think that's the case. So what does this double ripui come to teach you? Mibaile. It's necessary. It's needed for it, literally. L'kedetana debei Rabbi Yishmael. It comes. We need it for the teaching of the house of Rabbi Yishmael. Detanya debei Rabbi Yishmael, because we learned in a Breita that debei Rabbi Yishmael Omer, that the house of Rabbi Yishmael said, V'Rapo Yerapeh. This is a quote. Mikan shenitan reshut l'rofeh l'rapot. From here we learn that permission was given to doctors to heal, or to healers to heal. In other words, we need this doubling of the word not to teach us something about ripui payments, but to teach us that doctors have permission to heal. I will say that this is all a question. This is an answer. And this, of course, is a Breita. And we will discuss more in the future about this idea that doctors have permission to heal. Okay, we'll stop there.